Our next speaker is Tobias Leenaert. He is the founder and CEO of the Belgian non-profit organization IFA, which informs people about the benefits of vegan eating. Together with his team, Tobias developed a campaign for the adoption of a weekly veggie day, which got officially accepted in the city of Ghent, where IFA operates, in May 2009. In his presentation, Tobias will explain the strategy of his group IFA and the experiences with bringing about change in eating behavior, which he claims is the fastest way to quickly reduce the highest amount of animal abuse. Please welcome Tobias Leenaert.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm talking, or the title of my talk, as you can see, is Making Compassion Easier, and I'll explain what I mean with that. And it's a strategy for achieving vegan critical mass. And with vegan critical mass, I mean here that today I'm not talking about animal rights in general, with including vivisection and circuses and animals entertainment, etc., but really about animals as the beings that we eat. So that's what I'm talking about here today. And a couple of comments before I start. This is just one view. It's my view. It's my experience. It's our strategy. It's the intention is to show you, like, perhaps a couple of new ideas, but the idea is not to condemn any other strategy. I think this one is complementary to a lot of the things that are going on already. But it's quite different in the sense that it's not like it doesn't seem, at least, a pure abolitionist animal rights approach. But I think it's very much the same thing in the end. And I think it's always important when we have these debates about abolitionism versus welfarism, etc. It's very important to keep in mind that we all have the same great intentions, at least the organizations that really do strive for abolitionism, even if you wouldn't call the method abolitionist, but rather incremental. I think it is important to discuss strategy because some strategies are better than others. And you know, a lot of the times people say, like, oh, we need everything. We need this strategy and this strategy and this strategy. And I think that's true to a certain extent, but also that's too easy. I think because some strategies are a lot better than others, it is really important to find the best strategies. And I'm not saying I have found it, and I'm not saying several cannot coexist, but we really should look out for the things that work and the things that don't work. And it's true that with certain strategies you can attract certain people that you wouldn't attract with other strategies, but you always have to take also into account the number of people that you turn off with a certain strategy, right? You can perhaps turn on a number of people, like by having a very radical approach, like you can turn on a couple of young people, but really also think about all the people that see your message and that are not turned on but turned off by your message, okay? So these are just some preliminary ideas. This is our team. Our organization is called EVA, Ethical Vegetarian Alternative, and we define our purpose like this. We aim at the maximum production and consumption of plant foods, replacing animal foods in order to contribute to a healthier, greener, and more animal-friendly society. And our organization is all about mainstreamness. It's all about reaching a really big audience. And that's why also this mission statement is framed the way it is. We're not saying like we aim for the abolition of all meat, or we aim for the rights of animals or whatever. Why not? It's the same thing to us, but this is formulated in a way that is a lot more interesting for potentially serious partners like governments, etc. And this way, by using this mainstream method, we were able to secure right now 165,000 euros a year from the government. And we have had this for 5 years. We've had this money for the coming 10 years. So it's like a couple of million euros that we get from the government for spreading our message, which is great. It's a vegan message. We spread it, and the government pays for that. Right, but you can't do that if you appear like a very radical group or anything. You have to show that your purpose is socially relevant. And that's a very important thing. You have to show to your partners, to governments, to businesses, that your purpose is socially relevant, that you're doing what they want to do themselves, okay? So with that money and with other money, we have in total 12 paid staff members. We were able to convince our city of Ghent to adopt the Veggie Day campaign and several other, 6-7 other cities in Belgium. This is an article from Time magazine. This is the Japanese national TV. This is our mayor of the city of Ghent, which has 250,000 people, inhabitants, tweeting that the press coverage or the news coverage of that campaign, the Thursday Veggie Day campaign, the value of the monetary value of the news coverage was 20 million euros. We had it calculated by a specialized agency. So if you calculate all the press articles that appeared internationally, the value of that is 20 million euros. So the city was very happy with that. We introduced the campaign in some form or other also in other cities. The campaign, or the word Veggie Day, Veggiedag in Dutch, is part now of the Dutch language. This is the official book that lists all the words of the Dutch language, and the word Veggie Day is also now in there. And we won. This is not to brag, but it's to show that we've been acting as a mainstream organization. This is a cultural award that we won. We were selected as the first among 170 similar organizations, and we got this award from the minister, from the government of culture for our work. So what I want to talk to you about is impact. And impact, what does it mean, impact? Impact means that this is about ending this, right? Ending all this torture, all this suffering, and making sure people eat differently, people also think and feel differently. That's impact for me. So impact, or having a big impact, is not the same as telling it like it is. That's something that we want to do. Like we say like, oh, this is the truth, and I should tell the truth, and I really want to tell them what's going on here, etc. But that's not the measure for your impact, right? It's not talking about what we want to talk about. Your impact is about framing your message in a way that other people can connect with and act upon, right? You only have impact if people change their ways, if there is a serious attitude change and a behavior change, especially in their life. Okay, here's a question for you: why do most people eat meat? And you can answer that in a lot of different ways, but one interesting way to answer it is this: most people eat meat because most people eat meat, right? Does anybody recognize this? Yeah, some of you know it. It's a psychological experiment. Suppose I'm a psychologist and I have a group here, and I give all of you, I give this line, and I ask which line from those three has the same length as the one in exhibit 1. And you all, of course, know that it's A that has the same length. But what I've done is I've put some people of my group inside the audience, and those people will all say it's C or it's B, right? They will give wrong answers. And what happens, what we see when we do that, is that a lot of people who are not in the conspiracy, really the test persons, will start to doubt and will give these wrong answers themselves, right? Because of the pressure of the majority, right? So people are starting to doubt their own very obvious intuitions and knowledge because somebody else or a lot of other people say, no, it's like this. And that's what happens with meat eating. A lot of people know that there's a lot of problems with meat eating. But because there's 95 or 98% of the people eating meat, people say like, okay, it must be okay, right? There's all this suffering. I know there's all this suffering, but everybody does it. So what's the problem? There probably is not a problem. So I think one of our main challenges is to reach critical mass as soon as possible. And critical mass means a big enough number of vegetarians, vegans, or vegetarian consumers, etc. How do we do that? Going vegan is so easy. Have you ever heard that, or have you ever said it to somebody? Like, it's easy, you know? There's all these options everywhere, and I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true for most people. It's true for us, probably by now, and it's second nature to me to be vegan. But I myself, I needed 10 years to become a vegan. I realized I saw no difference between petting our dog and well, I saw no difference between a dog and a cow, and I said like I should stop eating animals, and it took me 10 years because I really loved eating meat, right? So what's the takeaway here? What's the important lesson? And this is a marketing lesson. This is a lesson from marketeers, and it's very applicable to us. I made this letter word Yanya, and it stands for you are not your audience. You are not the people you want to reach. And that's the most important skill. I think, I really believe that. The most important skill that any activist can have is to look outside of your own view and look at how other people perceive you, right? And let's do, let's give you an example. This is Jamie Oliver. He tried to introduce healthy school meals in a couple of schools in Britain. And so the students had to eat those healthy school meals because they're all overweight and whatever. And the school, what happened was that the students just left the school during lunch break to eat at the KFC and McDonald's and Burger King during lunch break outside the school compound, right? So what did the school say? The school said, let's make sure that the students can't escape during lunch break and we keep them here, right? So they have to eat our healthy food. So this enraged a number of moms of two of the students, and they took orders through the fence. They said, like, what do you want? And they went to the KFC or McDonald's or whatever in the neighborhood, and they brought back about 70 orders and gave them through the fence to the students. That is the craziness and the irrationality that we have to deal with, right? That is, so don't think that people are like us too quickly. I mean, in a sense, they're very much like us. I believe they have the same empathy. I believe they can really understand all these things, but they're blocked in a way. So walk in their shoes. Try to perceive how it is for them to see your message, to see our message, right? That's very important. And let's do a couple of quick exercises. This is Bill Clinton, who explains why he became a vegan. Now, I know some of you are thinking right now, he's not a vegan, he's fish now and then, blah, 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 etc., right? And it's true, he's not a vegan. He's not a vegan by definition, but think of it from the other people's perspective right now. Even though it enrages you that the word vegan is used in an incorrect way. What could a person who says like, oh, this Bill Clinton, he calls himself a vegan, but he allows himself to eat some fish now and then, or some barbecue or whatever, could it not be that to the public, to the audience, this is like more attractive than somebody who says like, I'm a vegan and I never, blah, 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 etc. I'm not saying we should start using the word like this. I'm just suggesting you like, try to think from their perspective, okay? This thing, meat is murder, dairy is rape, could be true, I don't know. But think of how another person perceived this. A person who eats meat hears that he is murdering animals. Normally, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but we know from psychology that if you blame a person, if you accuse him of something, he probably won't be very prone to collaborate with you. He won't be very prone to change his ways. He's going to be defensive. And I don't know if anybody studied nonviolent communication. It's a very interesting way to learn to communicate. And there they say, or Marshall Rosenberg says, like, if you can show empathy with another person, that's when he starts to listen to you and he starts to communicate with you. He's not going to do it when he's feeling accused, okay? Holocaust on your plate is kind of the same idea. Here is an interesting example. Morrissey, who attacked, there was this serial killing in Norway or something some years ago, and Morrissey said, this is nothing compared to the atrocities McDonald's does every day. Perhaps it's true, I don't know, but think how your audience perceives this, okay? This is me, I just took a picture of myself. This is like the vegan who's like very critically analyzing a jar of chocolate spread or whatever, you know. When he's among an audience of normal omnivores, think about how it looks, you know. You can be very proud, like you can say like, I'm gonna analyze this, and if there's anything impure, I'm not gonna have it, and that's me, and I'm pure like that, and I don't want all this crap, you know. But look, think about how this looks to a non-vegan, okay? Just think about it tonight or whatever. You don't have to do it now, but all right. Or it's kind of the same thing, you're in a restaurant and there's other people and you say like, I don't want anything with this, and I don't want anything with this, and I don't want this, and this, and this, and no honey, and and sometimes I have the impression that our aim seems to have like as little vegans as possible, you know? Because we make it seem all so hard. I'm not saying we should not communicate what we want, but try to make it to make it attractive, try to do it in an appealing way, try to make it not too restrictive. Another example is like, a lot of people say, and there's undoubtedly some among you, like, vegan is not a diet, it's a lifestyle, right? And then I wonder, like, why do we want to say that? Why do we want to make it even more difficult than it is? I mean, there's this person who's like a bit interested in going vegan or diminishing his meat consumption, and then we're telling him, no, it's not just that you have to leave out dairy and eggs and meat and fish. It's a lifestyle. You have to change your whole philosophy. You know, you have to like change your shoes and change the way you think and change the where you go and etc. So you make it even more difficult than it is. And just remember that going in steps, going incrementally, growing towards something is probably for most people a lot easier than just making the jump in one time. So yeah, vegan police is kind of the same thing. So going vegan is so easy. If you look at it from the other person's perspective, it's not so easy. I'm really sure of that. I mean, if it's so easy, we would have a lot more vegans. Let's be honest about that. Okay, so this is what it looks like for a lot of people, whether we want it or not. Okay, you have this big chasm. The vegans are there, and we are here, and yeah, it's like an impossibility. So what we have to do is make it easier. And I tell you how I think we should do that. Make it easier, like put some steps in between so that they can hop to veganism and make it more attractive, right? Okay. And this is kind of basic to my point here. If we want to change people, if we want to influence them, right, we can influence them by talking to, and this is a model from Switch, which is a book by Chip and Dan Heath, a very interesting book for activists. This is a model of change. So you have a guy who's on an elephant, and the guy on top of the elephant represents the brain, the intellectual brain, the rationality. And the elephant represents the emotional life, right? And so if I tell you like you should lose weight or something, I can talk to you like to your rationality. Like if you are very overweight, you will have a lot of higher risk for obesity, or you are obese, for cancer or whatever, or for diabetes. Or we could also talk to the more emotional thing, like you want to go on that date and this person is going to like you probably better if you, whatever. I don't know, something more emotional. So we can talk to different parts of the person. But there's also, apart from trying to convince people or trying to influence people on their mind or on their heart level, or on their feeling level, or on their rational level, there's also something completely different, and that's what's outside of them, and that's the path that the elephant is walking. And the more difficult the path is, of course, the harder it will be for the elephant to move. So the path has nothing to do with what's inside the elephant or inside the rider, right? A basic example is like if we give people smaller portions of something, they will eat less. And that's just something situational. It's in their environment. It's not in their heart or something. They don't have to think less or do anything else. They just get another portion, a different kind of size. So what's important here? And what's typical about our strategy? If we look at the data, farmed animals are where the majority of the suffering is, right? 99% or whatever of the animal suffering is in the food animals or the farmed animals. And what we also know is that meat producers are the main contributors to the reduction of animal suffering. If you look at why there's more and more vegetarian and vegan products everywhere, it's not necessarily because of the 2% vegetarians or vegans, or 5% or however they are, not too many. It's more because of the couple of dozen% of meat producers. That is where the attractiveness for the producers, for the market, for the people who cater for the offer lies. All those the significantly high amount of meat producers. Okay, and if you look at the motivations for reducing meat consumption, and you ask like, please tick the motivations that could be important for you, that could be the factors that could be motivation for you to reduce meat consumption, then in our research, and I think it's pretty similar in other researches, the number one indicator is, the number one factor indicated is health. Okay, the second one is taste, like trying new products, etc., having new culinary adventures. Environment is the third, and animals is only the fourth. This is different than asking people, why are you vegetarian? Right? It's asking omnivores, It's asking omnivores, why would you reduce meat? And we ask that, we think it's an important question because all these meat reducers together have a much bigger impact than the vegetarians, the vegans. And there's more of them because it's easier to reduce meat than to become vegan. Okay, this is our target. This is our target. It's a world where animals are not being eaten or abused or whatever, however you want to describe the target. And we are shooting different arrows at that target, right? We are shooting animal rights, animal arguments, animal arrows. We're shooting health arguments, and we're shooting other arguments like environment and whatever, okay? And this is like, here you see how it could be. But what we do as a movement is this, right? Animal rights arguments, that's the point that we convey most of the time. That's the arrow we shoot off most of the time because it's what's closest to our heart, right? But it's not necessarily the most effective to get that big number of meat reducers. So what I think is perhaps we should think about, we don't have to necessarily do it ourselves, but in society there should be more attention for these other arguments, for health and environment. If that's not your game, if that's not what drives you, you don't have to do it. But we may, like, for instance, collaborate with other organizations, with health organizations, to make sure that they also convey or pass on that message. But I think there's two things. Well, what I've said here is, first of all, meat reduction is very important, and secondly, we shouldn't focus only on the animal rights argument, but also on health and environment, right? And I think a lot of people in the movement, a lot of people among you are afraid of those two things. Why are you afraid of those two things? First of all, a lot of activists fear that if we talk about meat reduction, at some point people will say, well, I've reduced my meat consumption, so it's fine, and I'm not going to go further, and so we will never get this vegan world. That's what we are afraid of, right? So on this scale from carnivore, and I call it meatless mondivore, somebody who eats, who doesn't eat meat on Monday, to vegan, we are afraid that people will stop somewhere, right? And that society will stop somewhere, and that we'll end up with a society that is meat reductionist society, but not a vegan society. Right? I think that fear is not grounded. I'll talk to you in a minute. And secondly, if we talk about health arguments, we fear that people will just stop at the health arguments. They will just say like, yeah, it's for my health, it's not for the animals. And we also have this fear that people who do it for health reasons, they just fall off the wagon after a while. They're just not that motivated, and they stop being vegetarian or vegan, right? So I think those two fears are ungrounded. And this is, I think, one of the most important things of my talk. First of all, I don't think they will stop at reduction. Why not? Why is it so important to get this big number of meat reducers as soon as possible? Well, I think if we have a very easy call for action, like participate in a Meatless Monday or in a Thursday Veggie Day, what happens is that we get this this big mass of meat reducers, and that's already happening in the US. Here, there's a lot of meat reducers thanks to campaigns like Meatless Monday. So as a result of that, as a result of a lot of people saying, like, I'm a reducer, the demand, of course, increases, and also the offer has to follow. So a lot of restaurants, a lot of caterers, a lot of producers have to provide people with those vegetarian options, right? And what happens then is, and this is very important, that when it gets a lot easier to eat vegetarian food, to have vegetarian food, when there's a lot more people in your environment eating vegetarian now and then, the motivation that you have to eat vegetarian doesn't need to be as big anymore as it has to be today, right? Today, if you're a vegan, you had obviously a very big motivation. We have to make sure that that motivation is not necessary. We have to make sure that this way, the road that the elephant goes, is a lot more accessible, and that people can eat vegetarian or vegan food even without they have a reason for doing so. And then don't be afraid that they will do it for no reason, that they will keep doing it for no reason, because this is the second point. They won't stop at health concerns. If I put a person in a health spa, in a retreat for 30 days, and I give him only vegan food, and we don't inform him at all about the animal rights arguments or whatever, what do you think happens? He may not be an animal rights person, or he may not integrate or assimilate the whole story right away, but I'm very sure that it will open a door inside him. it will open part of his heart to listen to our arguments. So the whole thing is like a person who drops into the whole story for instance, health arguments. All of a sudden, he has tasted vegetarian food, and all of a sudden he's not that afraid anymore to lose his steak, to lose his piece of chicken, because he knows he can eat very good vegetarian food, and so he becomes more open to the arguments that we have. So it's like a person, like before he was not like, he saw a newspaper article about whatever, a slaughter of pigs or whatever, and he said like, I don't want to read that. If I read that, I'm going to have to change my life, so I'm not going to read it, right? So what happens now after he got into it for other reasons, he says like, oh, well, I'm already doing that, so let's read what's here, and he gets more open to it, right? You know, the fight that we're up against to change the way people see animals and to change food habits is I think it's the most difficult social movement in history. And why is that? Because we are so much invested in this animal abuse, right? If you tell a person like this and this and this about animals, if they believe you and if they're gonna say like, yeah, this is true, then they have to change their ways, they have to change their habits, their dietary habits, etc. So I think one of the most important things first is to make sure that society and individuals are less dependent on using animals. And then it will be a lot easier to change their minds, right? So it's a bit, this is the classical thing that we all use. The classical model of change is like we change attitude first and then behavior will follow. It's also the other way around. It's changing behavior first. For no reason they can eat vegetarian and then attitude will follow. Do you understand the distinction? I'm not saying it's one or the other, it's both. We have to take this into account also, okay? So attitude, behavior, but also behavior, attitude. Just a couple of small points I wanted to make. Identity versus inclusion. We are like proud to be vegan, etc. And we're a group of vegetarians, vegans. But the more we emphasize that, the more we exclude others, right? So what we have right now too often is this situation of us versus them. And I think we have to come to just us, you know? Trying to involve everybody, trying to include everybody. And there are things that everybody cares about. Could be health, could be animal suffering. A lot of people care about that, okay? So we have to really get rid of this us versus them ideology or discourse. I think that's very important. Try to include people, try to see where there's a match, there's a fit, where there's a connection, okay? Another principle of our work is we use the words vegetarianism and vegetarians and veganism and vegans, we use those words as little as possible. Why is that? Because they're substantives, they're nouns, right? They're nouns, like a vegan or veganism. A person who's not interested in going all the way is not attracted to those words. But a vegetarian meal or a vegan meal is a lot more attractive as an idea. You don't have to be a vegan to enjoy a vegan meal. And that's a big problem today, that vegan as an adjective is almost synonymous with the noun. And so people consider vegan meals to be meals for vegans. That's wrong, of course. But that's also our responsibility. We have to make sure, I think, that it's okay to enjoy vegan meals without being a vegan. And when we see people do that, let's just encourage it, right? Let's encourage them. Thank you. So, a very important thing, I think. Yeah, diet versus lifestyle, I already told you that. So some examples of making it easier. So things that we do, for instance, vegetarian maps of the city. We have of several cities. We have maps showing where people can eat vegetarian, vegan, etc. Cookbooks, of course. This is a campaign called Cook It Forward. It's like the Pay It Forward movie, but it's Cook It Forward. So we give people free cooking lessons on the condition that they will cook it forward for 3 other people at least, and so on. This is also to show that it has to be everywhere. This is an action we did in a butcher store, and we asked the butcher to make part of his counter like a completely vegetarian vegetarian counter, and there's an actress there behind the counter. Some of you may know her, Maaike Neuville, and she's in the Belgian series Van Vlees en Bloed, which is a butcher series, and she was playing a butcher daughter in that series, but in reality she's a vegetarian. She was the ideal person to sell vegetarian products in a butcher store. I think this is also a very important thing. It's changing the default option or nudging. It is, people don't like to be forced, don't like anything to be forced on them. So what we have to do is, I think that's in general also for the environmental movement, making sure that the undesirable options are being made more difficult. Meat eating has to be more difficult. Eating vegetarian has to be easier. Right? So, for instance, what we did was, this is the campaign image from our Thursday Veggie Day campaign at school. So, you see Red Riding Hood, who's not afraid of the wolf on Thursdays because he's eating vegetables. So, what we did was turn around the normal standard option. So, normally you have to, if you want to eat vegetarian, you have to ask it beforehand. So, on Thursday, everybody gets vegetarian unless people request for the parents request for their children that they have to have meat. I don't know why, but some people would say, like, even on Thursday, my kid has to have meat. But 94% of the kids eats vegetarian on Thursdays. It's a better way than just to say than saying, like, you have this problem problem. I don't know if it's a problem, but right now in Germany, where the Minister of Environment, I think Kunast, has called for a mandatory vegetarian day, and that brings out a lot of opposition in people. So people don't like to be told what to do. It's the adolescent part in us, right? We didn't like to be told what to do by our parents. We still don't like to be told what to do by society or by government. So let's try not to tell people what to do, but let's try to make it just easier to do the right thing. Okay, so a great example would be, I don't think any group has managed it yet, but it would be a great project on airplanes. If we would succeed at making the default option, making a vegetarian or vegan the default option, so when you get on the plane, you get a vegan meal, except if beforehand you went online and you said, like, I want a chicken dinner, right? The opposite of the way it is now. It would be beneficial for the environment, for the planes. It would be good for their image. It would be good in terms of food security, like hygiene. It would cater to a lot of all these religious and ethnic groups at the same time with one meal. So nothing but advantages could be cheaper, etc. Another important part is influencing the influencers. And this is also, I mean, if you look at your strategy is very much, and your communication style should be very much dependent on who you talk to, right? If you talk to politicians and to businesses and to serious caterers and to Sodexos, etc., you're going to communicate in a different way than when you're talking to just individuals, right? Or to a group of school children or students. Right? So you have to adapt your message, and I think adaptivity is a very important thing. Okay, making it more attractive. So that's what I'm saying. Like adaptation. Like make sure that you are able to like shift your own discourse, your own communication style according to who you are up against, who you're talking to. It's like I said. It's not about telling what you want to tell, talking about what you want to talk about. It's making a connection with your audience. If you're in front of a politician, for instance, a representative who's in charge of health in his community, then start talking about health, obviously. If you're talking to an environmental person, please make the link with the environment. And don't just talk about what you want to talk about. I mean, it's very logical, but I see a lot of people still not doing it. So we have all this range of options. That's the great thing, and that's what brought me into this movement, apart from the animals originally, is that there's no single issue, no single product in the world that changing it has so much impact. You know, if we change this meat consumption habit, we have this impact. You know the story, of course, but it's important to be aware of that and to be able to make the connection when we talk to people, right? You see somebody being interested in the environment, well, make the link. It's really easy, and it's a luxury that this issue has like no other issues, that we can link it to anything, right? Yeah, so talking to people in power, think about what is important to them, what is credible to them. Okay, we're not always credible in our statements, in our stories. We have to make sure that depending on who we're talking to, we should be credible. And I think this is also a very important thing, is humor. We should make sure that our story doesn't get too heavy, right? Because nobody wants to step in, wants to jump on a very heavy story. So that's why we have to, like, I think it's very important to have a certain dose of only a certain dose of these negative images and cruelty images, and put the majority perhaps on more positive ideas, so that people want to join us, want to join this movement, right? That it's not all about suffering. So this is a hamburger stand we had on a big street festival, and so there was, for instance, there was an orchestra playing on top. So just to show that this is like a very positive vibe, and that's one of the things that our organization in Belgium is really valued for, is the positive vibe. And we get so many times, like, what we love about you, like from omnivores, right? What we love is that you're not blaming, not accusing, not pointing the finger at people, but you try to involve them, right? And I think that's extremely important. And don't make the mistake of thinking that that message is too soft. The end game is the same thing, but it's all about strategy. It's all about involving people. Okay. Yeah. This is also an image of our team. The emphasis on food is very important. A lot of the times, I've seen people think that. Food is just this social thing, and it's like recipes, and I mean the real thing is the animal rights message and the philosophy and the cruelty. That's what we have to talk about. But I hope you understand from what I said that that food is extremely important here, and it is part of the title of this talk, making compassion easier. Right? Compassion will become easier. It will become easier to care about animals once we're not so invested in them. Once we know that there are alternatives. That's extremely important, right? Our hearts will open more if we know that there's alternatives. Incremental approach, don't be afraid of incrementalism. I mean, I know there's people who have a very big problem with incrementalism. I think that's really a mistake, and I think that's incremental is the way that society changes. It's not from there to there, it's like that. There's two ways of incrementalism today in the movement. There's this incrementalism in terms of the amount of meat, like less and less and less, and there's incrementalism in terms of like how the animals are treated, right? The second one is really the welfarist thing. I trust more the amount of meat, that we are incremental there, like that you say, like, let's start with a veggie day and then 2 days a week and whatever, like incremental like that, right? But I wouldn't dismiss out of hand the other incremental approach either. I think it has value. Just remember that we're all on the same team and that we all want the same thing. That's the most important thing. So the Thursday Veggie Day campaign, I think one of our main challenges, or one of our main objectives, should be that we become irresistible as a movement. With this Veggie Day campaign, we had the Farmers Union, which is our traditional arch enemy in Belgium. They sent out a press release when one state, one province in Belgium was introducing the Veggie Day in all their schools, and this Farmers Union got impatient, and they said, like, they really lost it, and they sent out a press release saying, like, oh, how dare they, etc. And the journalist asked them, like, what is your problem with one vegetarian day a week? And they couldn't answer that, and so we had, this peak is our website visit, is the best website, is the best day in all our history of our website. That's the day when those people came out with a press release, and it was a very good day for us, because we saw that people could not find reasons to be against this idea, against the idea of meat reduction. That's also a very important point if you talk to politicians, etc. It's very hard to be against meat reduction. It's very hard. You cannot find any arguments, and you can find arguments. I mean, people think they can find arguments against vegetarianism or veganism because it's a philosophical thing, right? And it's everybody's choice whether they participate in killing animals or not. Of course, I don't share that opinion, but that's the view. But most people will know today that we are eating too much meat and we have to reduce it. So that's why this is a very important message. And once again, it doesn't take away from the message that in the end we all want the same thing. All right? Thanks.